and welcome to my sunflowers workshop. In this workshop I'm going to show you how to create 2D and 3D sunflowers using lots of different mediums. I really hope you guys enjoy this workshop, so let's get started. Hi everyone and welcome to my sunflowers workshop. So in this workshop I'm going to show you how to create 3 different types of sunflowers using 3 different mediums. So on this first nail I'm going to be using a gel polish and doing some hand painting. On the second nail I'm going to be using some acrylic, and on the third nail I'm going to be using some 4D carving gels, or some of you may call them lace gels, to create different sunflower looks. So as you can see, I've already painted all 3 of these nails with my 2 coats of gel polish. Now obviously with the acrylic one we would have used an acrylic enhancement, but just for the purposes of this video and to make a nice white background I've used a gel polish. So the first nail I'm going to do using gel polish to create our sunflower. So I have got a mustard tone here. Okay, so it's a little bit goldy and it's a really rich mustard tone. And then I have got a bright yellow, and I'm also going to use a black for the center, and I'm also going to add a few leaves on there as well. So I've got a really nice dark evergreen sage green, and then I'm also going to pop a little bit of white down on my palette as well, just for the highlights and a few of the speckles in the center of my sunflower. So like I've already said, I have already done 2 coats of gel polish. If this was on a client, we will have done our prep and our base coat and then gone in with our 2 coats of gel. And before I do any hand painting on top, I'm going to get rid of that inhibition layer, because I don't want my gels in my hand painting to be bleeding out everywhere. So by removing that inhibition layer, it's going to inhibit that from happening. And I've just got a tiny little bit there that I'm just going to get rid of with my file, just from the edge of the tip. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is establish where I want to put my sunflower. Now the placement for this is entirely up to you. A lot of people tend to do sunflowers coming like a half moon rather than the whole flower in the center. So I'm going to come from what would be the cuticle line, so from this top area here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in where my center point is going to be, okay, because that's going to be able to give us a base to be able to work from in order to put our petals in. So I'm just going to go into my black, and I'm using my Crystal Nails Phantom brush here, okay, and I'm going to use this here as my central point, and then I'm going to just do the circle that would be the center of our sunflower. Okay, so using that point there as the center of our circle, I'm just going in, and this is going to be quite a large sunflower because they are large and I absolutely love them. One of my favorite flowers. And I'm just going to make sure this doesn't have to be perfect at this stage, because we are going to come back to this and add a little bit of detail, but it's going to give us the point from which to work from to be able to do our petals. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that in for a really quick 10-second flash cure, and the reason I'm just flash curing it and not fully curing it is because I just want it to stay where I've put it rather than fully cure it at this stage. So I'm going to add in my petals, and I want to do a double layer of petals. So I do tend to see a lot of people when they are doing sunflowers just doing one layer of petals, but sunflowers actually have multiple layer of petals, and I want to create that in this hand painted look. So I'm going to go in with my darker colour because that's going to help to create dimension and shading. So I'm going to go to the central point of that half moon that we've just put in, and then I'm going to do my dots as my guide of where I want my petals to be. And it's from that I'm going to work from. So that enables me to be able to know exactly where I'm going with my petals rather than just trying to guess and fit them all in. So I'm just going in with this mustard colour and creating a tapered petal shape. And I'm going to do that for all of them. So I'm going to go quite large because, like I say, I am going to double layer these petals. So you don't want them to be too small. You want them, because we are going to be doing smaller petals in here. And I'm making sure I'm tapering that out to a really nice point. Okay. And then I'm going to come here again making sure that they're as even as you can get them. So a nice fat belly to the petal, and then tapering that out using the point of my brush into a teardrop shape. Okay. Now this can be done on any length nail. I'm just going to do that half one there. Okay, so this can be done on any length nail. Now obviously there's quite a lot of negative space here, so what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to do another sunflower coming here. So I'm just going to do that half moon again of my black, and before I do the petals I'm going to pop that in for a cure. So just making sure that that black is really nice and even. It has obviously got areas where you can still see that white coming through, but we are, like I say, going to be adding detail to this, so don't worry too much about that at this stage. So I'm just going to pop that in the lamp for a 30-second cure, and this is all normal gel polish straight from the bottle, so a full cure for this is 30 seconds. So this will be nice and fully cured when it comes out of the lamp. Okay, so I'm just going to add my petals to this lower sunflower, or the free edge sunflower, and again I'm going to add in my dots of where I want my petals to be. I'm going to start at the central one, and again making that teardrop shape, butting it up against that black, and then doing the other side as well. And because all of this is fully cured, if you do make a mistake, then you can go in with your gel residue wipe off solution and just wipe it off. It's an absolute joy to work with gel polish for that reason. So again, just tapering that out, making sure it's a really nice crisp point. You don't want that to be fuzzy in any way. And again coming here and doing another petal, and this one's going to be coming off of the nail, but you just need to do it as though the petal is there. Don't stop short, don't try and fit the entire design on the whole nail. So again, doing this petal and then coming the other side, and then filling in that negative space. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that in for a 10-second cure, just so that those petals that I've just done don't move or bleed out anywhere. So I'm now going to go in with this lighter colour, this lighter yellow, to create my second layer of petals. okay, because if I was to do it in this darker mustard colour, you wouldn't get that definition and layered effect. So I'm just going to do them in between the space that our darker mustard yellows have created. So in exactly the same way, I'm going to come in with my gel polish, and these are going to be slightly shorter, okay. So again, same shape, but just slightly shorter. So that teardrop shape, and just tapering them out like we've done. And then in all of the gaps, overlapping them slightly. So that we get that layered look. And again, tapering it out. I'm going to do the same here in that teardrop shape, tapering it out to that point until all of the gaps are filled. Now here we have got a gap, but we don't want the design to stop short, so make sure you put that petal in there, okay. Now I'm going to pop that in for a full cure, and because that's a lighter colour and this mustard tone is stronger than the lighter colour, it is showing through slightly, but that's absolutely fine because we can go in and do a second coat, and then that will give us the opacity that we want on our lighter pink. Not pink, sorry, yellow. I've got pink on the brain today. Okay, so that has now had a full cure, and I'm going to go into that lighter yellow again and just go back over the petals that I've just done and just give it that little bit more of an opacity, and you can see that's covered really nicely now. And this also helps to give the design depth, which with a layered flower is absolutely perfect, and it's what we want. So making sure we don't go outside of those lines, but because it has had a full cure, if you do, don't panic. You can just wipe it off and start again. Okay, and then doing these ones down here as well. And working in a really nice methodical manner so that you don't miss any areas or petals out. It's really important when you're doing nail art to make sure that you're methodical, because you don't want to get to the top coating stage and have missed an area. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in the lamp again for a full cure, and then we're going to darken up that centre. So I'm going to do another layer of our black, and I'm also going to add in some green leaves because we're not working wet next to wet. So when you're working with gel polish, always try and work away from the wet area. So for example, I wouldn't have done the black and then gone straight in with my petals because it's wet next to wet and the colours would have bled into one another. So this is all now cured, and I'm just going to go in with my black, crisp up that line, okay, and then fill in that negative space. And obviously, because this is around the cuticle area, if you create a border and then you have your line to work to, because you don't want to overexpose your client and get any product on their skin, so the cuticle area and side walls. And again, going around here, crisping that up, making sure it's really nice and crisp, and then pulling that out through the negative space. And because this is on the free edge and side walls, just making sure that you cap that as well. So that again is going to go in for a full cure, and then we're going to add a little bit of interest. So I'm going to add my leaves. So I'm just going to put some leaves with this beautiful sage green, just coming down here just to add a little bit of interest to this design. Again on this side. Tapering that out. Now I do want to add a couple more leaves here, but I don't want to go wet next to wet. So I'm just going to pop that in for a flash cure. And then we're going to add some more leaves and then a little bit more detail and interest into the centre of the sunflower and also the petals. So I want to add a little bit of highlights. It's all a little bit too flat at the moment. So by adding highlights and shading, it means that we are creating that interest in the design. So I'm just going to add a smaller leaf here. Okay, and because I like to work to the power of 3, I'm also going to pop one here. I think it looks a lot more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So I'm just going to pop one there. And because I'm leaving a gap between my leaves, I'm going to pop one there as well. Okay, so that's now going to go in for a full cure, and then that will enable us to do our highlighting on our flowers and our leaves as well. So in order to do that, I'm going to go in with my white, but I'm also going to mix up a slightly lighter green. So I'm going to take the green that I've already used for my leaves, and then I'm also going to take a little bit of white because I want the green to be the same tone. I don't want it to clash. So by mixing the colour that you've already used, you're not going to get that difference in tone of colour. And if you don't quite understand the colour theory and what colours go together and what colours don't, then I would highly recommend to get a colour wheel. They're absolutely fantastic at explaining colours, and they're a great way of learning colour theory. So if you want one of those, I have got them available on my website, so just hop on over and we can get one of those out to you. So on each side of my leaf, I'm just placing a line, okay, of that highlight. And make sure that you put it on the same side on every leaf, because that will create consistency throughout the design. So I'm just popping that on. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same for my petals. Okay, so because we've got that darker tone behind here, I'm just going to add a little bit of that darker tone at the base of each of the lighter petals. And I am going to fade that out, but I'm just going to let that gel settle and relax, because every time you touch a gel polish it constricts. So by allowing it to relax, it's going to be much easier to fade out. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the petals that I did first, and I'm just going to use a tapping motion just to fade that out. You can use the lighter yellow as well, just as a mixing, blending medium. I'm going to do the same on every one and just tap it out. So you can see I'm hardly putting any pressure whatsoever on my brush, and it's creating a really delicate fade on those petals. I'm going to do the same on my lower sunflower. Okay, and now I'm going to pop that in the lamp again for a full cure. So I want to make sure that that's set. So I'm now going to go in with my ultra fine 000. This one is from Alchemy, and you can see how super duper fine the tip of that brush is. And this is going to help me to pop a little bit more detail into those petals, and also the center of the sunflower, and also the veins on the leaf. So that has now come out from a full cure. And I'm going to go in with my white this time, and I'm just going to go onto the edge of this lighter petal and create a line of light and highlight. So just using the very tip of my brush and just dispersing that product out. Okay, and then doing the same on the petals up the top. And by adding a highlight, it adds definition to the shading as well. Now, if you have got a line that goes slightly thicker, just use a clean phantom brush and just remove that product back up onto itself and crisp up that line. And again, coming here, pulling that gel polish where I want it, letting the brush do the work for me. And again here, adding that highlight to that petal. And again, it's a little bit too thick, because you want this to be really nice and delicate, even though sunflowers are bold and brash. You want that delicate element to this design. So I'm just crisping up these lines. Okay, and that's going to go in again for a flash cure. And then I'm going to add some detail into the center. So I want to darken down this mustard tone. So I'm just going to get my mustard and a tiniest touch of black, and just darken that down. And that's going to help me to create a browny bronzy colour. I'm just going to get a little bit more, so I've got a little bit more to work with. And just mix that. I'm using a silicone tool to mix it, because then you're not wasting product. It's not going to get absorbed up into your brush, because you can just roll it and create a pool of product. And now I'm just going to go in with the very tip of my phantom brush and create a little bit of interest in this central area. So I'm just going to go round this line first and just soften that slightly, and then I'm just going to add a few little dots, doesn't matter if they touch, into that central point. And I'm going to do the same up here, just to soften this black line. And then go through the center like so. And I'm also, while I'm here, going to add a little bit more of a highlight to my leaves, just ever so slightly. With my 000 and my white gel polish. And then going in this side. just to create more of a highlight. And again, if it's a little bit too thick in areas, just remove that excess product back up onto itself. So that is now going to go in for a full cure. And then we are going to finish this design off with our top coat. So because this design is slightly lumpy, because we have got those different layers there, I'm going to go in with my base coat first, just to help to even it out. And then I'm going to go in with my top coat. So this is a great trick to be able to create that glass-like finish on a design, in order to have a really nice smooth surface for your top coat to go on top of. So I'm going to go in with my base coat, and obviously if this was on a client, you would be making sure that you're steering well clear of the cuticles and sidewalls, and also capping that free edge. And I'm just evening out the surface of this nail all the way down, nice even coat, and remembering to cap that free edge. So I'm just going to pop that in the lamp for a full cure, and then we're going to go in with our top coat. So it's entirely up to you whether you use a shiny top coat or whether you use a matte top coat. Now a matte top coat, you are going to lose definition slightly and the crispness, because it's a bit like when you look through frosted glass. So it does make any crisp lines slightly fuzzy. So it's entirely up to you whether you use the matte or the shiny, but I'm going to go shiny because I love, love, love that glass-like finish that you get with a shiny top coat. So I'm gonna just show you how that has evened out that surface. So it's still a little bit lumpy bumpy, but not too much that our top coat can't handle it. So we're going to get a really nice smooth glass-like finish on our top coat. So again, if we're working on a client, you need to make sure you're steering clear of the cuticles, sidewalls, and that free edge is going to be capped. I'm giving it a really nice, consistent, even top coat to create that glass-like finish. And there you have our gel painted sunflower design with our leaves. So we've got our shading and our highlights, and you can see that little bit of sparkle that's coming through on that center. Absolutely stunning. I love, love, love sunflowers, and that completes our first design. So that's all using gel polish, and obviously it can be done on any length nail. So if your nail was just down to here, then there's no reason why you can't fit that sunflower on there just from that cuticle area. Okay, so the next design we're going to do again is going to be on our white background, and I'm going to be using acrylic to be able to create our sunflower. So this is going to be a flat 3D design. Now that does contradict itself, but it's going to be 3D and slightly raised, but not so raised that it becomes a 4D nail. So on this nail I have done 2 coats of gel polish, but obviously if you were doing this on an acrylic enhancement, then we wouldn't need to top coat because we could go straight in onto our acrylic. So I have done the top coat to give us a surface to be able to work on basically, and I'm going to be using colours from the Alchemy Genesis range, okay, which is the acrylic system, and this is a yellow called Insight, and it's got a little bit of sparkle to it. And then we have got Marigold, which is our orangey tone, and then I've got a leaf colour which is called Cloudburst, okay, so it's a really nice sage dark green. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the lids, because I'm going to be mixing my two yellow colours, or the marigold and the yellow, in order to create my petals. So I'm going to grab this out of the lamp, and there's no inhibition layer on there, so I don't need to worry about that. And I've got my monomer in a dish, and I'm going to be using my acrylic brush. Now, a lot of people tend to worry about the size of their acrylic brush with regard to creating flat 3D acrylic work. So I use a normal size acrylic brush, which is an 8. Anything bigger than an 8 is a bit too big, okay? So you need to have that tapered point to your acrylic brush to be able to create the 3D designs. So just bear that in mind, all right? So I also need a colour for the centre point of my sunflower, but I don't want it to be too heavy, okay? So I'm going to go for a grey rather than a black, and this is like a, it's like a slate grey. So this is the, again, Genesis, and this colour is Thunder. So I'm going to get that ready as well, and I'm going to go in with a little bit of gel polish after, just to create a little bit of shading on that grey. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to create our leaves. So you have to work backwards when you're doing flat 3D. So the areas that are in the background, that little bit more, is what you need to do first, okay? So don't be tempted to go straight in with your petals and then try and do your leaves after that, because I want my petals to be sat on top of these leaves. So I've just got a tiny little bead there, and I'm going to go in, I've just let it rest, and I'm going to go in and start to shape that up, okay? So just pushing that acrylic where we want it. And your acrylic control when you're doing anything like this, so especially with flat 3D work, and albeit a normal enhancement, you need to make sure you've got control over that bead. You don't want to be chasing it around the nail, okay? So having a bead placement sheet is a really good way of practicing your bead placement. So I'm just going to wait for that to set up, and you can see it goes a little bit of matte as it's setting, and as that's happening I'm going to pop a crease in this leaf. So I'm going to pop the vein in the leaf using the very tip of my acrylic brush, and then just pull that out where I want it, and I'm just going to flatten down that area of the leaf because obviously there's going to be petals there, and then pull that out to the tip. Okay, so you can see there we've created that vein, and if I hold it that way you can see I've tapered it so that our petals can sit on top of that leaf. Now I'm going to do that again with another leaf. This time I'm going to go slightly smaller, and I'm going to go here, okay, and then push that out to where I want it, and then start pushing it into that leaf shape. So you can see I'm just using the very end of my brush and being really gentle with it. You don't want to go in too heavy-handed. You just got to let the acrylic do its thing, settle up, and not overwork it. So just popping that dent and that curve of that leaf in there, and then I'm just going to wait. You can see it's really quite shiny at the moment, and that means it's not quite ready to be worked. So I'm going to wait for that to go a little bit more matte and settle up. And then I've just popped my brush into my monomer, and I've made it really nice and flat on the end. Because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go in rather than a point and create that vein, okay? And then again, just using the side of my brush just to taper that down so that our petals have got that surface to be able to sit on top of. So again, just if it starts to spread, just pop it back where you want it. And that has created another leaf. So I'm going to do another leaf here because I can't just have two, we need to have three. So I'm going to grab another bead. This is going to be a medium size leaf. And pop that bead down. Wait for it to settle. Then I'm going to come this way. Now if you have too much product, just remove it and get rid of it. And then wait for it to settle up, and then go in and shape that leaf. So again, I'm just going to push that product where I want it and taper out that end. Into a point, creating that teardrop shape. Okay, I'm going to pop my brush back in my monomer and create that really nice flat edge to be able to pop the vein in. So it's gone nice and matte. So now I'm going to pop the vein in like so, just with the edge of my brush. And then because we've just moved that product slightly by putting that vein in, just pushing that product back up on itself just to create that really nice crisp edge. And then I'm going to use my brush just to taper that down so that we've got that nice, if I just show you there, it's been tapered down like this one, okay, so that we've got that nice surface for our petals to sit on top of. Okay, and that's our leaves done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop my centre of my sunflower in. So I'm going to go into my grey, and the centre of my sunflower is going to be just here. So I've popped that product on. I'm going to let it do its thing. I'm just going to move it up slightly. I've put it a little bit too low down, because the centre is going to sit back from the petals. Okay, so don't be tempted again to try and do your centre after you've done your petals. We are going to add more detail to this centre after we've done the petals, but the main body of that centre needs to go in now. So I'm just going to flatten that out slightly and keeping that nice curve in there. And again, just flatten it out. Okay, and then I'm going to let that set up, and then wait to do my petals. Okay, so this is now set and it's all nice and hard, and I'm going to go in and do my petals. So I'm going to use my orange and my yellow, and I'm going to double dip to create both colours within my bead. So I'm going in, I'm picking up my yellow, picking up my orange, and you can see I've got both colours on there, and I'm going to go in and do my first petal. So I'm going to come here first of all over my leaves. I'm just going to remove a little bit of that because it's a little bit too big, and I'm working a little bit drier because I want this petal to stand up. Okay, so I'm just letting that do its thing and polymerize a little bit, and now I'm going to start working this petal out into the shape that I want it. So like we did with our leaves, but I'm not going to flatten it too much, and then bring this up to create my petal shape. And by having those two colours in there, it is helping to create a little bit of depth and dimension. So just while this bead is trying to spread, I'm just going in and pushing it back where I want it, but I don't want to make it too flat. And here where there's a join, I'm just pushing and lifting that bead. So you can see there, we can see our leaf underneath. Now, as this begins to set, I'm just going to pop in a crease. So it's like the vein of our leaf, but it's more of a crease. And then when I've done that, I'm going to push these sides back up, and that helps to accentuate that crease down the center. Okay, so again I'm going to go this side, push it up, making sure that those edges are really nice and crisp, and then I'm just going to lift that slightly. Because as the acrylic is starting to set, it means that we can manipulate it that little bit more. And I'm just pushing out that bottom part, just flattening out that center and fattening up that petal. We want a nice flat edge here. Okay, we don't want to taper this part. It's the edge of the petal that we want to taper. So I'm using the belly of my brush just to entice that acrylic into the position that I want it. So you can see we've got that crease down there, but it's not like the vein of our petal, of our leaves. It's flatter than that. Okay, and that's our first petal done. So I'm going to do exactly the same all the way around, but I'm not going to work wet next to wet. So I'm going to leave a space here to be able to do my next petal, and then the petal I'm going to work on now is going to be here. So you need to imagine that there's another petal here that we will do in a second, but the next petal I'm going to do is going to be here because we don't want to work wet next to wet. So while that one's setting up, we can go in and do what would be our third petal, but it's actually our second. That bead was a little bit large, so I've just taken some of that away. I'm just going to allow that to polymerize a little bit, and then start manipulating it into that petal shape. Start to push it where I want it to go. Keeping my edges nice and crisp. And being quite firm with it, you don't have to be gentle with it. And then I'm popping that vein in again and then just dispersing that product. And this is a little bit too much product, so I'm just going to remove that from there and then taper this out. And just crisp up my edges. And then just keep pushing that product as it's setting exactly where we want it. So again, just going back in, creating that dent, and then pushing those sides, and then I'm just lifting this edge here because I don't want it to be completely flat like our leaves are. We want to have that little bit of movement there, so it allows us, as the acrylic is setting, to go up underneath and give it that little bit of lift. Again, checking our edges the whole time, making sure that they're nice and crisp. And then again, giving it that little lift. Okay. And that's our second petal done. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to work here on this edge. So again, going into my yellow and then into my orange marigold, popping that bead on. Now obviously this is coming onto the side walls and free edge, so this is going to be more like half a petal. So just pushing that product where we want it. Letting it polymerize. And then going in and starting to manipulate that product into the shape that we want. Making sure that we don't get any product underneath of the nail because it is on that edge. Again, keeping everything really nice and crisp. Using the tip of my brush to manipulate it, and now I'm going in and creating that dent. And this whole process, I'm not adding any more monomer into my brush. I'm just working with what I've got, because if I did, it would make it too wet and this bead would just spread and not stay where I want it. So again, just sorting out that free edge. And then going in. Now I'm going to create that little bit of lift. And then straighten up that free edge again, or side wall, and then popping that dent in. Creating that lift. And working with acrylic in this way, it's really important to just be patient, because the whole time the acrylic's setting, you've just got to keep at it and be patient. It's not a process you need to try and rush. Okay, so I'm just going to crisp that up there. And now I'm going to come up here and do this petal here. Excuse me. So again, going into my yellow and my orange. Now this petal's set, so it means I can work next to it. And again, this would be near the client's side wall, so you would have to make super duper sure that you're not touching their skin with this product. So product control is super important at this stage. So like I say, I have got some bead placement sheets that are available on my website, so www.laurenmcbridenailartist.com, where you have your bead practice sheets. So it allows you to practice the consistency and product control. And you've also got on there some French bead placement practice. So when you come to do your pink and whites, you'll have a little bit more confidence in your placement. So when it comes to this join here, you want to keep that nice and crisp. So just going in and making sure that we've got that line. It's nice and crisp, and also here you don't want this to become fuzzy. So just using the point of my brush, pushing that acrylic down and back onto itself, you'll create that really nice crisp line. Can you see there? So now it's setting up slightly, so I'm just going to go in and create that dent. And then start to push it out, make it a little bit fatter, and then taper out that edge and give it that little bit of lift. So you can see from that angle, you've got that little bit of lift there. So again, just going in, crisping up that line, keep going back to it, keep working that product, making sure it's where you want it and not where it's spread to. Okay, so now I'm going to work on this petal here, because both of these have set up nicely. And by doing it in this way, it means that you create that dimension in the petals as well, which is what we want. We want that layered effect. So again, just placing my bead down, filling in this space here. Letting that polymerize slightly. Don't be tempted to work it too early. And then coming in, crisping up this line. So we've got two that we need to make sure that we keep our eye on this time, because we're going in between two petals. So going in to that corner and then tapering the product out. Now I'm going to go in and create that dent. And then go back in and crisp up those lines. This is really important, this section here between the two petals, because you don't want it to just start to merge. You want that definition, like here, between the petals. You don't want it just to become one big blob of acrylic at the base of the flower or the center of the flower. So again, going in, creating that point, and then accentuating that fold. Patience is a virtue with this. And then again creating that lift, so you can see there from that angle we've got that little bit of lift in there, but it's still attached to the nail nice and securely. So just accentuating that corner there. And keep lifting it where you want it, because it is going to try and, gravity is going to take hold and try and settle that product back down. And lift. Okay, and now we're going to create our final petal here. So again, going into my yellow and then into that marigold orange, popping my last petal down, and you can see my product control there. That bead isn't going anywhere, so that's the stage, that's the point you want to be at with your bead control. I'm just going to blend those colours a little bit more because I've got a bit of a line in there. And then coming in, and again, like we did on the last one, making sure that we keep both joins between our other two petals nice and crisp, nice and defined, and also on that centre. And we've also got a leaf to think about here as well. So creating that V and then also keeping this area here around the leaf nice and crisp. So again, coming in here and here. and then pushing in that fold, and then tapering the petal out. And it's a little bit too wet still to create that lift, so I'll do that in a second. I'm just going to define this area here, keeping this really nice and crisp. And you can see now why we tapered down that leaf, so that these petals can sit on top. If that leaf was too bulky here, we wouldn't be able to get a nice petal placement. It's just going in, and now I'm able, it's set up enough to be able to create that lift in there. And now tapering it out, flattening out that fold. So you can see I'm putting the point of my brush down into that fold and then flattening out towards the edge, and then smoothing out that edge. And then putting that lift back in. That lift does create all the difference, because you can see here on this one you start to get like a shadow, which is great for dimension. Because even though this is 3D, it's still quite flat, so it's great for clients that want that 3D element but aren't good with super height on their nails. Okay, and that's our final petal done. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit of dimension in here. So I have got a acrylic powder, and this one is actually from Neo Nails, and it's called Cinders, and it's like a dark, I want to say black, but it's got this bronzy glitter in it as well. So I'm just going to take this off so you guys can see it. It's really quite dark, but it has got that little bit of sparkle to it, which is great for the dimension that I want to add to the centre of this nail. So I'm just going to pick up a tiny little bit and I'm going to pop it, and you can see how much darker it is. I'm going to pop it and I'm going to work really wet and just butt that up against the petals, and then I'm going to feather it out and create like a shading. So I'm almost using this acrylic like a paint medium, because I'm working so wet with it. So I'm just picking up, you can see how tiny that bead is on there. Okay, so again, just popping it on, spreading it out, and then tapering it into the center. So we've created a little bit of dimension in that center point, or you could use gel polishes to do this, but obviously that would mean curing. So again, just tapering out that color, and then I'm going to pop some tiny itty bitty little beads, just using my brush and letting that bead create some tiny little dots in there. So going into my monomer, picking up a bead, okay, and then touching and then lifting off. So we create these little dots. If the bead wants to drop down, let it, and then just remove it. Okay, so again, going in, picking up a bead and creating some little dots in there, just randomly. So you can see there we've got those tiny little dots of acrylic. And that is our acrylic sunflower. So you could go over this with top coat. We have top coated this base white, and obviously acrylic dries matte, but we have got that little bit of sparkle in there. So by all means you could go over with a matte top coat or a shiny top coat, but be very, very careful not to flood your detail work. So personally I would leave that like that and just let the acrylic be the matte tone that it is naturally. And that completes our acrylic sunflower. So I'm going to pop that again to one side, and we are now going to work with a different medium, and I am going to be using a 4D, 3D, 4D lace gel. So some people call this a lace gel, some people call it a sculpting gel. There's lots of different names for it, but yeah, so they come in these little pots, and I am just going to take the lid off. So this is my orange. Now if you haven't got these, don't panic, because we are going to have some available on our website very soon, hopefully in a couple of weeks. So that's a little exclusive for you. So I've got my yellow and my orange, and then I've also got my, these are brand new, so I've still got the seals on them. I've also got my black, okay, and I might add in some leaves with my green, but we'll see what the main flower looks like. So these are basically like Play-Doh. They're really fun to use, and it's a great way if you're not an acrylic tech to create 3D work without having to use acrylic. So I have got my nail here, which I've done 2 coats of my white, and I'm just going to pop a no wipe top coat on there, and I'm going to go shiny, and this is going to give us our base to be able to work on top of. So I've just got a little bit of something in there, which I'm just going to get rid of. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to go in with my no wipe shiny top coat just to seal all of this in. And obviously if you wanted to do some dot work or some nail art and give this a background, then you absolutely can, and then do your top coat. But just so that you guys can see, I am doing it on a plain white background. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, now you can use lots of different tools to be able to get this product out of the pot. Personally I just use a dotting tool, or you can use a spatula. So I've got a spatula here, but I use such a tiny amount in this design, you don't really need to use a tool that's going to use a lot, but I'll just show you with the spatula here. So you literally just take, you can see this is literally like Play-Doh. I'm going to take out a bit of product, okay, and just to give you a little heads up, do not leave this open and exposed to any UV or LED light. So So don't leave it anywhere near your lamp or an open window because it will set. Okay, so make sure you leave your lids on when you're not working with them. So I've got my product here and I'm going to take it off of my spatula, and I appreciate this is black on black so it might be a bit difficult to see. So I've got my ball of product there, okay, and I'm just going to roll it and warm it up a little bit and create a ball. Okay, and now I'm going to pop that, I'm going to do this sunflower central, I'm going to pop that on my center of my nail, and then I'm just with my finger, because I've got that ball, going to squish it down and create the center of our sunflower. So you can see we've got a really nice circle there because we created that ball. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in with a pointy dotting tool. So this isn't a round, it's a pointy, and I'm going to create some dots and make this pitted like the center of a sunflower. So this will not set until you put it in your lamp. Okay, so if you don't like it, you can just take it off, re-roll it and start again. So I'm just pitting this all over with my pointy dotting tool. Okay, so you can see that's all pitted now, and I'm going to pop that in the lamp for a cure. So I'm going to pop it in for 30 seconds. A full cure is 60 seconds, but I just want that to stay where I've put it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create our back layer of petals, and I'm going to use my orange for this. So I'm going to go in with my spatula, or you could go in with your dotting tool. So if I just show you with a dotting tool, you literally don't need a lot. Okay, so again, take it off, roll it to warm it up, and then I'm going to pop that just there. Now this is probably the most difficult part of working with a 4D lace gel, is to get your balls the same size. So I'm going to go round the whole flower. So again, roll it. It can be a little bit fiddly, but and then stick it. It's not so easy when you've got gloves on. If it is, you are finding it difficult, then just use the dotting tool to pop it where you want it. So again, if you've got too much, just take it off, roll it. And you can create lots of different designs with this 4D gel. It's really, really simple to use and perfect if you're not an acrylic tech. So I'm just going to pop that one there, that one there, and we need one more. Again, roll it and pop it down. That one's not quite a circle. Let's take that one off. Make it more of a circle, or a ball, I should say. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to manipulate these into the shape that I want. So I have got these silicone tools, okay, that are mini silicone tools, and they are great to be able to manipulate 4D or lace gel. So I'm just going to make sure that this silicone tool is super duper clean and hasn't got anything on it at all. Okay, and this is this shape, so like a triangle. So what I'm going to do, just to make sure that they're nice and secure, I'm going to push down with a large dotting tool and just make sure that those dots, those balls, sorry, are nice and firmly fixed onto the nail. I have got the tiniest little bit of glitter in there, so I'm just going to remove that, pop that back where I want it, and then push it back down. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in with my silicone tool and start to manipulate this product out. So I'm just using the edge of my tool just to push this product out. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and start to create that petal shape. Now you can, if you haven't got silicone tools, go in with your dotting tool, but it needs, you don't need a brush for this because your brush is just going to stick. So I'm creating that little bit of lift like we did with our acrylic, and then tapering that product out, and again pushing down. You need to be quite firm with it, and then tapering it out. I'm just going to smooth that out with my silicone tool, making sure that it's nice and smooth. Okay, again just going to taper that out. Push it where I want it, and then again, now you need to be really careful that you don't stick your finger, because until this goes in the lamp it's not going to be cured. So don't be sticking your finger in the ones that you've done, okay, because it will dent it. So if you're not confident in doing this many petals in one go, then just do one or two and then go back to it. Okay, so that one's a little bit too fat, so I'm just going to squish that down. There we go. And then this one coming out, tapering, and you can see I'm being really firm with this. You don't have to be gentle. This one's a little bit too big, so I'm just going to remove a little bit of that product. And then create that fold. In there. Okay, so making sure that we're happy, I'm just going to scooch that one up a bit. There we go. So obviously this would be here on the free edge, so I'm just going to straighten that up and also make sure that one's not touching what would be our side walls. And I'm going to pop that in the lamp for a cure. So that's going to go in 30 seconds. And then I'm going to do a layer of my yellow. So I'm going to grab out, like I did while this is curing, like I did my orange, and I'm going to make my balls. So I'm just going to let them drop down off of my glove and just create again the same sort of size balls so that we've got that consistency. And it dropped down. So that one's a little bit bigger, so I think I'm going to want them bigger, to be honest. So let it drop off your glove. And I love how it gets this gloss to it. So again, oh, they're touching. There you go. Right, so I'm just going to count how many I need. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I've got 4. So I'm just going to grab another ball. Okay, so we've now got our balls. So I'm just going to pick them up with my dotting tool and pop them on into the joins of our orange petals. So again, pick up, put down, pick up, put down. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same again with the larger end of my dotting tool and just push this down and just keep that nice and crisp on that centre. And then I'm going to go in and start to create that petal shape. Again, pushing down. Where's my silicone? That one. I'm going to use my silicone tool. Push these down. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and create that petal shape, but I want to create a little bit of lift here. So making sure that that connection is nice and crisp. Again, and it's just, if you've never used this product before, it's great to play with, and it's also great if you like creating mixed medias box sets, because there's just a whole host of things that you can do with it, and you've got so much play time, whereas with acrylic you've got that set time to work to, whereas this you can play until your heart's content and then set it once you're happy with whatever it is that you've created. And it doesn't spread either, so you can just manipulate it where you want it to go. And it keeps those really nice crisp edges. So I'm just going down, creating those folds, making sure that my edges and my points are nice and crisp and my connections are all good. And obviously we wouldn't be able to do that if we were working, as you've seen, with acrylic, because we've got that set time to work to. So I'm just fattening out some of these so they're not so skinny down the centre section. I'm just crisping up these lines here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make sure that I haven't gone too high on this connection here. So I'm just coming in and flattening that out into the centre. Okay, and I'm going to pop that in the lamp for a cure. So again, in for 30 seconds. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my orange and my yellow, okay, and I'm going to grab a little bit of both and I'm going to mix it, but not too much. So can you see there, we've still got the yellow and the orange. So I'm just going to create my balls. So again, I think it's 5 I need. Perfect. Okay, so I've now got a mix of my orange and my yellow. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create some itty bitty little petals just down around here. So I think I'm going to go into this connection here. There we go. So that one's going to go there. That's not quite a ball. It's more of a sausage, but that's fine. It's easily sorted out. And then in here, and then here, and then here. Okay, so again, I'm going to squish that down with my dotting tool, making sure that we've got a nice connection. If it's particularly difficult, just roll it off. And then pushing it down, keeping that line nice and crisp. If it starts to play around and not do what you want it to do, take it off, re-roll it, and then pop it back down again. Okay, so now again I'm going to go in with my dotting tool and I'm going to create a third layer of flowers, of petals. So just crisping up that line first of all, but I want this to be lifted off of this orange here. Okay, so we're going a little bit more 3D on this one, which is what we want. So I'm gonna go in, create that petal shape, create that fold, and then I'm going to lift it and then pull that back out. So can you see we've created that dimension there? So again, on this one, creating that petal shape, keeping that nice and crisp, creating that fold, getting that point of our petal in, and then lifting it. You have to be quite firm with it. What you can do is pop your finger underneath and create that petal shape on top, and then just remove your finger. Or you could put a dotting silicone tool underneath, create that petal shape, but obviously that's easier on a finger because your tip isn't going to be moving around here, there and everywhere. Again on this one, making sure that's nice and crisp, popping my finger there, thumb. My tips coming off of my stand. Okay, and then creating that fold. And then working your way round. Need to go slightly bigger on this one, I think. I'm popping my thumb under there, just bringing that out to help me create that lift that I want. Another way of doing this is you can do it on the back of a form, so you know your form paper that you get from sculpting, or on a laminated sheet, and you can create your design, so in this case your petals, cure it underneath the lamp, and then this one needs to be bigger too, and then use a little bit of hard gel and place them on as individual separate 3D elements. So that is another way of doing it. So I'm just making this one slightly bigger. So again, creating that petal shape. And then lift. If you need to, put your thumb under. Keeping that edge nice and crisp. So I'm going to make these slightly bigger because they're not quite the right shape. So I'm just going to pop this one back on. Putting that vein in, that fold, teasing that product out, and lift. And then this one, I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. I'm going to pop that one down there. And then lifting, popping my thumb under, pulling that shape out, and then just you can do a little pinch. I'm just going to pinch these two. Okay, and then we need one more. So orange, yellow and orange. Roll my ball. Pop it down. Secure it. Edges. Shape. Fold. Lift. Now be really careful not to touch those petals that you've already done. If you are worried that you're going to do that, then just pop it in for a cure. Because you don't want to have to keep going back over the work that you've done. And then I'm going to give it a little pinch. Just going to lift it slightly more. There we go. Okay, so that is now going to go in again for a full cure. And I love this product. Absolutely love it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create some leaves because it's not complete without a leaf. I feel like it's just stranded, hanging around on the nail all by itself. So I'm going to go in with this green, okay, in exactly the same way. So I'm going to grab my spatula for this one and I'm going to get my green out, warm it up on my hand, give it a little roll around, and I'm going to go more sausage with this one, okay, and then do the same again but slightly smaller, warm it up on the back of my hand, go a little more sausage, and then because I don't like twos, I am going to do another leaf. Again, warm it up. Sausage. Oh, that one jumped away from me. There we go. So I'm going to go in with my dotting tool and pick up my largest sausage. He is going to come, oh, he is going to come down here. Okay, so we're going to have a leaf there and my medium sausage. It's going to go here. Okay, so I'm just going to push that down into that corner that's been created by our petals. Then using my dotting tool, I'm just creating that shape of my leaf. I'm going to give it a pinch to create that leaf shape. I'm going to go under with my pointy dotting tool just to refine that shape. Now I'm going to go in with the edge, full length of my dotting tool to create that vein down that leaf. Now I'm going to pinch it again. Accentuating that vein. Pinch. Okay, and do exactly the same up here. So pushing that down into that corner. This one's going to curve around slightly. Give it a pinch. Put that vein in. Pinch. Okay. Now what I want to do is to create the veins on my leaf. So in order to do that, I need to use my straight silicone tool. Okay, I'm literally going in here and pushing it from that central vein that we've put in and creating, just going to push that up on itself a little bit more, creating the veins in my leaf. Okay. I'm doing exactly the same on this one. And then that is going to go in for a cure. Okay, so that's now had a full cure, and I'm going to pop my smaller leaf just down here. Because I need 3, I can't just do 2, it's too symmetrical. So I've put that round the wrong way because I want a fat end down here. Okay, so again, going in with my dotting tool, pushing that up. Now if it starts to separate like this, take it off and warm it back up again. So it's because it's got cold. So just warm it up either on the back of your hand or between your fingers. Create that sausage again and then pop it on, because it will start to separate if it gets too cold. So I'm just securing that down there at the base, then coming in here, putting that dent in to begin with, pinch, okay, then I'm going to go in with my straight silicone tool, tidy up that edge, tidy up that vein, put my veins in and give it a final pinch. Beautiful. That's going to go in again for a full cure, and that completes our sunflower workshop. So we have got our gel painted with normal gel polish sunflowers on there in gel polish. Then we have got our flat 3D acrylic sunflower. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you these a little bit closer. I'm just going to turn this down slightly, and then hopefully you guys will be able to see a little bit better. There we go. So that's our painted gel polish sunflowers. And then we have got our flat 3D acrylic sunflower. And then we have also got our 4D lace gel sunflower. Now with your lace gel, it has got a semi-shine to it. I absolutely love it, and there's no need to top coat it, okay, because it doesn't have a sticky layer. It cures dry, so you don't have that sticky inhibition layer on there like you do with the gel polish. So personally I love that finish because it's not super high shine, but it does help to accentuate the detail in those petals and also like the veins in those leaves. So it's entirely up to you what you do with that, like with the acrylic. Okay, so you've got your matte and your shiny difference between your acrylic and your 4D lace gel. And that completes this workshop. So as always, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you all very soon. So that completes my sunflowers workshop. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please make sure you click the like button, and if you'd like to see any future workshops, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all soon.